All right. Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Twins Daily Live. It is a beautiful Tuesday morning. I am your host, Sweet Lou Hennessy, and I am here with Mr. John Bonus, who is live in Fort Myers. How's it going, John?
I am chilly,
You're
sweet
chilling.
Lou. Yes, it is. I know. I'm sure the people in Minnesota can sympathize with this.
Sure.
But when we woke up this morning, the feels like outside was 38 degrees here in
Ooh.
Florida. It is up to 53 right now. It's supposed to be up to 61 by the time game time starts. But that's about as warm as it's getting today. We've had two very
Wow.
chilly days here in Florida. We after a week of 80 degrees, etc. Supposed to warm up. You don't worry, kids. It's going to warm up a little bit the rest of the year. We're not, but the press box here doesn't have windows. Press
Okay.
box here is wide open to the air. So yeah, it was a little chilly this morning getting in there and trying to type with gloves on at 40 degrees. So
Sure thing. Well, I have two questions for that. Have you seen any iguanas falling out of the trees yet?
no, I have not seen any iguanas falling out of the trees. We still see the that's one of the odder things to be about Florida is that leaves drop from trees in Minnesota, but the leaves aren't palm trees. Huge palm things that come
Sure.
hustling down, and you see them fall out of the trees. You're like, that's going to hurt somebody. So yes, no iguanas falling out of the trees.
Okay.
As a
And
good one.
has Betsy Helfand been hospitalized for hypothermia yet?
Honest to God, that is our biggest concern. We've got to watch on her.
Okay.
We've got her surrounded by people, making sure everybody's keeping an eye on Betsy to make sure that that the hypothermia doesn't stay, that she doesn't turn too blue. She
Sure.
has a very, very light pale of blue for now. So
Okay, we'll take that. We'll take that. But hopefully, the Twins can warm her up with some good storylines here. It's been a handful of games in Grapefruit League action so far. We've had some big storylines. Of course, the Pablo Lopez injury was huge, and then on Saturday for their very first Grapefruit League action, there was a little bit of a scare when Joe Ryan was scratched about 10, 12 minutes before the game time. Can you give us just a little run through about what that was like when they made the announcement, what some of the
well,
speculation might have
yeah, of
been?
course. So I mean, it had to happen versus the Red Sox, right? So
Sure.
it's their opener versus the Red Sox. So the place is packed, and it's packed with Red Sox fans. It's also packed with Red Sox media, the press boxes, right? And the word came down late. It came down at like 12:53 for a 105 start. And the announced replacement for him was somebody none of us had really ever heard of. And we knew that Simeon Woods Richardson was also there. So we knew that it was a late scratch, that it wasn't like they'd figured this out an hour before and Simeon Woods Richardson was going to be facing the, top of the of the Red Sox order. It was two guys that none of us had ever heard of that clearly had just been put there at late notice, right? And so, and the notice itself was just like, Joe Ryan has been scratched from today's start. So and so is going to be starting at that time. We'll have more information for you later. And then they left. And everybody's looking around like, oh, that's weird.
Sure.
And of course, because there had been so many rumors about Joe Ryan being close to a trade to the Red Sox, that was immediately where everybody in the press boxes head went, just because of the oddness of the. I mean, usually it is a, so and so has been scratched with such and such. Maybe we know it's already day to day. Something like that. And like, even if they don't announce that publicly over the PA, the PR guy will kind of come over to the beat writer and saying, "Don't freak out, everybody," or something like that. Just like, I can't give you all the information now, but you don't want to go overboard on this because
Sure.
just a heads up, something like that.
Okay, so
none of that. Dustin Morse made the announcement and then left the room immediately, and we're all like, "Yeah."
That's interesting.
So there was an alarming kind of piece about that, right? Now, within 10 minutes, I think we'd heard that there was lower tightness in his back, and we were like, okay, well that's it. But yeah, there was a live 10, 15 minutes where everybody's kind of looking around, going, "Well, let's stay tuned, kids." So
yeah. I mean, it's hard after like you said, the rumors from the trade deadline where it kind of looked like he was heading to Boston. It's hard not to think, hey, hug watch, time to look down in the dugout, see who's giving some hugs here in case a trade had been made. But like you said, turns out it was lower back tightness. He went in for imaging, and on Sunday it came out pretty clean, a little bit of inflammation, and they said that he'll be slowed down a little bit, but nothing overly concerning. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, I mean, nothing overly. It sounds like nothing overly concerning. I mean, it's day to day. We asked the next day. We asked Derek Shelton, and basically he said it's day to day. He even has not been ruled out of pitching in the WBC,
Okay.
which he was supposed to leave for, I think, according to the Twins, he was supposed to leave for on March 1st. It actually seems a day or two late. But the point is they were going to reevaluate in 3 to 4 days from that, which would be, tomorrow or Thursday or today.
Yeah.
We will get a sense of whether or not he's there. So I will just say this, on the Twins roster thing today, one of the pitchers in reserve has a last name of Ryan. And I wondered, is that Joe Ryan? Is it possible that they're going to try and get him in like in the 9th inning just to throw a little bit to see how he feels or something like that?
Yeah.
Or is there just a minor leaguer that they brought over from the complex whose last name is Ryan, which is certainly possible as well. So I guess stay tuned and we'll see what we see on that. So
yeah, I can't think. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of their single A or their rookie league, whatever. Any of these guys, maybe there's a Ryan there. Nothing's coming to mind.
Exactly.
But...
I mean, listen, it's not uncommon that one of the interesting, especially games early on in the spring training in the Grapefruit League season, is that there's all kinds of names that you have never heard of before.
Sure.
Because they want to give their regulars 4 or 5 innings, 2 or 3 at bats early on, and then get them some rest, keep them ramp them up a little bit slowly, and as such, that gives them an opportunity to dip into. Bring up a bunch of minor league guys and play, innings 7, 8, and 9. And you rarely recognize the names of, anybody after about the 7th or 8th or 9th inning, unless you're Seth Stos or Jeremy Dygart or Jamie.
Sure.
Right? Like that's just the way it is.
I don't mean to drag this guy through the mud, but the guy who replaced Joe Ryan in that start on Saturday, Easton Stull, I said, who?
Yeah. We actually asked Derek Shelton, like, well, why Easton Stoll? And the answer was like, he was here.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is, I mean, you actually saw it in yesterday's game versus Lakeland. There is some value in taking a look at the order in which pitchers end up entering the game, because they want the best pitchers facing the best hitters. And that happens early in the game, because if you're going to, in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, know that just like you're going to be facing a bunch of minor league prospects in innings 7, 8, and 9. You don't necessarily want your, Justin Topa to come in and pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, because there's no value to it. Of course, he's going to look good, right? And I mean, it's not, if he's trying, even if he's just trying to get a sense of how his pitch is played, there's no point in him doing that, checking out his new, splitter or whatever he's working on, versus a guy who's, a high A ball. Like it's not going to tell him anything.
Sure.
So there's a value in kind of seeing how these guys line up sometimes. And so yesterday, I noticed that between Prielipp and who was it? Lawyerson or somebody else even before that, there was another name. And I was like, I don't know that name at all. Who is that? Well, of course, it's because Prielipp didn't go. He got wild. His pitch count he reached before his 2 innings were done. They wanted, so-and-so to come in. Let's see, who was it? Might as well get this straight.
Raya, maybe. I know he came in at some.
It went from. It was supposed to be Abel for 3 innings, Prielipp for 2 innings, Travis Adams for 1 inning, then Lawyerson and Raya all pitched in that order, right? But in the middle of it, you got somebody named Trabachi, who pitched a third of an inning, and I'm like, who's Trabachi? Well, he's there because Prielipp couldn't get through 2 innings at his pitch count. He got through 1.2 innings. He walked a bunch of guys. He'd reached his probably 30 inning limit or something. That Prielipp got to 41 pitches yesterday, and once he reached that, they're like, okay, well, we're not going to start Adams here in the middle. We want him warmed up and such. So, hey, Trabachi, you at the guy at the end of the bench, you're pitching now for 1 inning. Get that last out, right? Which he did. He got that last out. So that's why you got to be a little aware. I think it's valuable to track how the relievers line up, but it's also, you got to remember that these guys have things that they're working on too.
Sure. Well, there's been no shortage of, as much as the lineup and the 26-man roster, there's a lot of names that are kind of written in pen right now. But there are still some fun races that are going to be happening throughout spring training that we're going to want to track.
Yep.
So one exercise I thought we could do together here, John, was do a little heat check on some of these guys who are battling for some of these last roles here. So I'm going to give you a player who, like I said, is battling for a roster position. And I want you to give me just a little heat check of their early impressions. That can mean mean, you give me the temperature. We could go with weather. You're talking about how chilly it is down there. So you could say, if this guy is scorching hot, why don't we start with somebody who's scorching hot, and you can give me kind of the weather forecast for Mr. Emanuel Rodriguez, who has been turning some heads so far in his first couple of games.
Yeah, he's certainly at the ball that he hit out at versus Atlanta was Shelton even said, when he swung and hit it, I didn't think he got all of it. Like I thought, he's just going to miss that. And it was 15 feet past the wall. So, he definitely showed his part. I will mention he is a guy who is playing twice in a row today for a second time today after playing yesterday. Actually, is that third time? Maybe not twice in a row. Anyway, he's again in the lineup today and in the road game. Well, he is hot. He is 70 and sunny right now. He's not somebody that is going to. I don't think he's somebody that's going to make this opening day roster. I don't think he's got any chance of making this opening day roster unless there's an injury.
Sure.
But he is somebody that is showing well here in spring training. Listen, Emanuel Rodriguez shows well every time he plays. He's just got to stay healthy, right?
Right.
And he definitely worked on that in the off season. I think that the Twins are really excited to see how he is. We did ask his at bat style, is very reminiscent of, say, like Edward Julian, right? Which is, super patient, waiting for his pitch, and then when he gets his pitch, he will hit the snot out of it, which is what we saw from Julian. And then Julian ended up struggling at that because he was probably a little too passive. Waiting too much, waiting for the pitchers to come to him. And in the majors, pitchers have more control, and it becomes a little bit trickier. We did ask Derek Shelton about that, and basically Shelton said, mostly you leave that guy alone. You don't try to get him to adjust to the majors. They figure that out. If you find him not swinging at balls that are towards the middle of the plate, well, then you maybe have to get involved, but otherwise you just let him work that out. So he's working it out just fine right now. He's had a nice start to the spring.
I think 70 and sunny is a really good way to look at it right now. If he has a 3,000 OPS in a month from now, then he's looking like, 95 with 75% humidity, scorching hot still.
That's right.
Like you said, a lot has to happen, and there would have to be probably an injury or some changes to the depth chart in the roster that would give him an opening to crack the opening day roster. That is something I do want to maybe write about with Twins Daily of what would need to happen. It's highly unlikely, maybe like you said, almost impossible, but non-zero chance. What would need to happen? Who would need to get hurt? Who would need to be off the roster? How hot would he, he would likely have to be one of the top 3 hitters in this lineup, or looking like it, that he makes it like, okay, we can't leave this guy down. You can't leave.
Yeah. I think you'd need unfortunately, you'd need a number of injuries to get Emanuel Rodriguez into the opening day lineup, right? There's just too many. They're already wrestling with how many outfielders they have. Mm-hmm. And I think they do want him to have some time in AAA, et cetera, just to, although he has been in AAA now for over a year, he hasn't had that much time in AAA because of all the injuries. So.
Right. Yeah. No. So we have a comment here who says, as much as I want to see Emma in Minnesota to start the year, I'm worried it would be another Aaron Hicks situation. It's reminiscence. Yeah. I think they're different style prospects for sure, but there was a lot of hype. What was that? 2013, I want to say, when Aaron Hicks was kind of making some noise in the spring, right. And then
came up and just got dominated as soon as he got to the majors, in part because he was too passive at the plate. That's correct.
Sure. Yeah. Well, here's hoping that history doesn't repeat itself there, but that's a good heat check on Mr. Emanuel Rodriguez. But next up, somebody who would likely be competing against is Mr. Alan Rhoden.
Alan Rhoden hit a grand slam just 2 days ago versus the Braves, and that was fairly early in the game when they were still facing. It wasn't that early in the game. I guess it was the 6th inning, so they might not have been facing some of the Braves' top players. Rhoden. So I will just mention, so you probably haven't seen this because I think it went live at exactly the same time that we went live, but I just put a report from the Fort on sort of the bench battles.
Okay.
And who is going what. And I gave, basically I took 8 candidates that I think are going to make the bench. This is given no injuries.
Sure.
If there's no injuries to the top 10 guys on this roster, here's the 8 guys that are battling for the remaining 3 spots. And that means, There's 100% chances there of making there. Let's divide it between those 8 guys and let's see what percentage chance everybody has.
Sure.
And I think I gave Al Rhoden about a 25% chance.
Okay.
Essentially, I see it as, I think Austin Martin is too good of a player to not too good of a fit in too many places to not make it. Then you're going to have one of the 3 guys battling for a shortstop, and then I think you've got about 4 guys who could make the roster, and Al Rhoden is one of them. And it depends how much the Twins. How much faith I think they have in sort of Larnach's defense and left field to a large extent.
Okay.
Al Rhoden could be out there playing left field and then subbing around at other outfield spots if he needs to, and then that would allow you to have Larnach at DH. The problem is in terms of making that last spot is you probably really want a right-handed hitter there. Like if you have faith in Larnach to play most every day in left field, or in Cody Clemens to play most every day in left field. We haven't seen him in the outfield yet, by the way. Then maybe you probably want a second right-handed bat on the bench, similar to, other than Austin Martin.
Sure.
And so, Al Rhoden he is also 70 and sunny right now. A nice start to the season. I'm not sure that he's 90 degrees and sweltering, but he's 70 and sunny. He's being moved around from different corner outfield spots right now. Derek Shelton has said that they will give him some time in center field here in spring training to see how he does that, and that would be a significant thing for him because they need a backup center fielder. Now they've got a number of different options for that backup center field, including Austin Martin, the guy I mentioned. So maybe he's got that covered. Maybe Ryan Kreidler, if he makes it as a backup shortstop, could also be a backup center fielder. Yep. Maybe James Outman, who's out of options, and could be a significant extra. But yeah, Al Rhoden has had a nice start to camp.
Yeah, no, he's somebody who's going to, be someone to watch. Something that maybe isn't working in his favor is that he does have a minor league option remaining. Yes. Some of these guys don't yes. have that. And so, they could, not that he has something to prove at AAA necessarily, but he does have the option of, if they do want to fit somebody else on the roster, they can store him at AAA. So that's something that isn't working in his favor.
And they've got, how does this sound? Because they've got a crowded outfield situation up here, they kind of got a crowded outfield situation over in St. Paul now too. Like you've got 4 legit prospects that could be running around in the outfield there that all played there not last year. Yeah. Al Rhoden, Emanuel Rodriguez, who we just talked about, Walker Jenkins, who by the way is starting in center field on the road today at Tampa, and then Gabriel Gonzalez, who also, is somebody that the right-handed version of the hitter that they want to see, who also had a great year last year in AAA. So, interesting. Yep,
it's going to be the race for sure. Let's move on to somebody who you just mentioned, and that's Mr. Austin Martin, who one of the players who made the most out of his opportunity in August and September of last year. I thought he really showed some development. He showed some great on-base skills, which has always been kind of a strong suit for him. There's still some question marks about his capability to play, plus defense, let's say.
Yes, right.
But I don't think it's out of the question. He's still very speedy. He's got good range, not much of an arm, but I think that I was talking about this on the Twins Off Daily podcast last night. I'm not sure that there's such a vast difference between what he provides in center field versus James Outman. James Outman has plenty more experience there, and it sounds like they had more faith in James Outman at the end of last year. But just looking at some of the stuff under the hood, some of their range, like I said, I don't know if there's that big of a difference, and his utility on this roster would be so much greater with the fact that he's right-handed, the fact that he can, move around a little bit. He has a little bit more speed. What do you think about Mr. Austin Martin? What's his heat check right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll say he's 60 degrees. I mean, I don't know that he's shown a ton right now in the first couple of games, but it's the first couple of games. But I do think he's, I wouldn't take that as he's not doing particularly well. I think you're right about the Outman thing. He's 3 years younger than Outman. He's right-handed hitting, which Outman is not, right? The only thing that Outman has is that Austin Martin doesn't is he's out of minor league options. So if you don't put him on the opening day roster, there's a good chance that you lose him, and you just traded for him. Got him from the Dodgers at the trade deadline last year. So are you really ready to give up on a guy who had a couple bad months with you? You spent the offseason with him, and now you're going to take a look at him in spring training. Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. I will say this about Martin. Defensively, first of all, to make the bench here, you don't necessarily need to be an everyday to be the backup center fielder. You don't need to be an everyday backup center fielder. You know, we've got enough everyday backup center fielders at AAA so that Buxton gets hurt for an extended period of time. One of those guys is probably going to call up. We'll see Emma, or we'll see Walker, or we'll see, maybe Alan Rhoden. Like, we'll see one of those guys if we think that they can really handle it. So you're just looking for somebody who can kind of fill in a couple times for Buxton. And like I said, Martin, is a right-handed hitting bench bat. He's a decent defender in left field, especially. He's a former top prospect. He provides some speed on the bases. All of these things that you mentioned with Outman, but he's 26 years old and, somebody that you probably want to develop as opposed to, and like I said, the right-handed batness really plays better on this roster than the left-handed one. So I did talk to him the other day in the locker room. He spent a lot of time talking about defense.
Okay.
Yeah, outfield defense. By the way, he's not working on the infield stuff. Really, I think he's concentrated mostly outfield completely.
Fair.
And he felt like it was a big adjustment to playing in the majors from playing in AAA because of the third deck factor in Major League Baseball. That you have trouble. He had trouble getting a read on the ball early due to that third deck, which you often hear from players. They talk about moving from AAA to the majors. The outfield takes a while to figure out because you lose the ball in that third deck. It takes longer to get a read on the ball. And, that might very well be the case. I'm not sure I don't think the Twins have given up on him in center field. If you take a look at where he started in St. Paul, he started in center field a lot. If you take a look at where he started in the majors, he's played center field a lot. So he might not be a plus defender out there, but I don't think they think that they're ready to give up on him in center field.
Okay, that's good to know. One thing I was thinking about with Austin Martin and how he fits with the rest of this roster here is maybe he's not an everyday starter or even start 5 times a week, but I think that he's going to be somebody who finishes games quite frequently as a late inning defensive replacement, as a pinch runner, if they do really want to commit to some of these, to the speed game and be creating some havoc on the base paths.
I agree.
He's somebody who could be a weapon in that case, and I think it'd behoove them to have him on the roster.
I think, not only that, he also is probably a platoon player as well. Like, somebody, if you had Larnach starting in left field versus a left-handed pitcher, why not put Austin Martin in left field, who provides you better defense, probably better at bats versus a left-handed pitcher early on for the first 6 innings of that game, and then play the bullpen matchup as you need to in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And frankly, if they bring in a left-handed pitcher in the 8th inning to face Larnach or to face Wallner for that matter, Austin Martin is a good guy off the bench, and then I would suggest maybe you want a second guy like that as well. Because you've also got Cody Clemens on the roster, and he might be starting a lot of those games.
Well, let's dive right into it. So one of those right-handed bat options could be Mr. Eric Wagaman, new acquisition from the Miami Marlins. They traded a minor league, mid-level pitching, relief prospect, Kyle Bragg, but Eric Wagaman, kind of low wattage move, but could serve some utility. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I've got him as a 20% chance of making the roster, 25% chance. I think I've got him slightly above Rhoden. And partly it's because he is just a good mirror image of Cody Clemens in a lot of ways, right? The one thing he can't do that Cody Clemens can do is play second base.
Sure.
And so we are, we'll keep an eye. Cody Clemens, by the way, has started 3 games now as of today at second base for spring training. We've only seen Luke Keeschel there once. We saw him once as a DH, so I'm going to just kind of keeping my eye on that.
Okay.
Wagaman can play. He's fielding in both the infield and the outfield spots here in spring training. So left field, right field, first base, third base. He's actually had to start at third base as well. And so, he is, and talking to him, he feels real confident about his ability to hit left-handed pitching. Okay. He is not confident about his ability to hit right-handed pitching. It's not even necessarily, I'm not saying he's not working on it. He's working on all of it, but he knows his role is to hit left-handed pitching. And unfortunately, what I've seen so far is I don't think he's faced a left-hander yet here in spring training.
Interesting.
So I will go like 50 degrees, right? Because, he's getting the starts on the road and so on. Like, I think he's really in the mix. I think he's a good fit for this roster. If I had to choose which got that last roster spot between Outman and Rhoden and Wagaman and probably Urshela, I would probably pick Wagaman.
Okay.
But he was supposed to, the very first game of the season, or the very first game, the very first Grapefruit League game of the season, he was at third base. And I was like, oh, I'm surprised that he's starting there instead of Royce Lewis. And it was, or maybe it was first base, and instead of Josh Bell, it was first base instead of Josh Bell. And then I looked and I'm like, oh, well, they've got a southpaw on the mound. But the problem is that Wagaman was batting ninth, and the southpaw went 2 innings.
Sure.
And so both he and I think Urshela ended up having to face right-handed pitchers, and I don't know that he's had an at bat versus a left-handed pitcher yet. So
interesting, something to watch. I don't have him on our heat check game here, but I think part of his inclusion on the roster might come down to if Ryan Kreidler does make it, because he fills, like you said, both the backup shortstop and potentially backup center fielder role, creating an extra bench spot. Maybe that goes to someone like Wagaman, who has maybe less utility. Like you said, he plays the corners. I think maybe you mentioned that he will get some time in the outfield as well. At least he's been getting some
for sure
reps out there. So.
I think we'll definitely see him in the outfield at some point here in spring training. Okay. I mean, I think that's one of the things they're looking. The one thing he brings to the roster over, say, Urshela, is a level of defensive flexibility that the Twins would probably want. I mean, especially if you get, like you said, in the late innings of a game and you want to pinch hit for Larnach and you've already used Martin for something. Now Wagaman comes in there. Now you got to figure out where you're going to play Wagaman. You know, he's got, and it might very well be left field or right field. And if you take a look at where he played last year, he made starts in all 4 of those spots. So
okay. All right.
Or at least appearances in all 4 of those spots.
Yeah, something to watch. Okay, I think we've spent enough time with the offensive side of this. I have a few pitchers I want to get a heat check on. First, Let's start with the Twins' top pitching prospect, Connor Prielipp.
Yeah, 40 degrees. He did not look great in yesterday's outing. Pretty wild, which surprises me a little bit. But, I mean, I will say this, he's still being stretched out as a starter. Okay. Which is, I think, interesting. Partly that might be because the Twins have acquired so many left-handed relief pitchers this year, but also partly because, and they've also lost one of their starting pitchers and maybe a second one of their potential starting pitchers, because we're understanding David Festa, we're not going to be seeing in the starting role here right away, at least in spring training camp, while he recovers from whatever it was, the thoracic outlet recovery, etc., that plagued him at the end of last year. So, Connor Prielipp still in the starting plans for probably St. Paul. Did not have a great outing yesterday. We'll see how he bounces back probably sometime this weekend.
I know he's been working on a couple new pitches. By the end of last year, I think he was working on a 2-seam fastball or a sinker that he was kind of messing with. And then in the offseason, he kind of picked up a curveball, which, looking at some of the numbers under the hood, sounds like it had some really good movement and some good, spin on it. But like you said, he was having some trouble locating. Yeah. The good news is I don't know if if he's a true candidate to crack the opening day roster. I think they're going to slow cook him. Even like you said, if he's starting games, I think they're probably going to be pretty conservative on his innings limit, let's say. I don't know if it'll be to the extent of last year where he was pitching 3 2/3 pretty regularly. Maybe they try to push that up a little bit, but they could have him start down there, try to build up his arm as much as possible. And if they need to make a move, it's easier to make it to the bullpen than the other way around.
I think it's somewhat optimistic. If you're looking for a positive, I think the fact that they let him throw 41 pitches yesterday, this is pretty early in camp to be throwing 40 some pitches as opposed to 30 some pitches. So it shows that he's been training. He's already been working his way up, and we'll have to see what his next outing looks like. My guess is, like I said, if he pitched yesterday, is probably his next outing is Saturday or Sunday.
Okay, cool. All right. Somebody who has been impressing early on and who has made that transition to the bullpen is Marco Raya. What do you think about Marco Raya so far?
Yeah, I mean, he got some praise for his outing a couple days ago, and I think they were impressed with some of the stuff that he has shown. He's definitely going to be in the relief role right now. Right from the beginning, he was told that he was going to be. He finished last year in the relief role as opposed to a starter. We've kind of been waiting years for this, truth be told. The fact that they've been so careful with him and his pitch count because of Tommy John's surgery way back several years ago. And they've just been careful about, how much his arm can take. And so we kind of expected eventually he would maybe end up in a relief role. He did by the end of last season. He didn't do particularly well, but he did all right at the end of last season as he kind of learned it. We did learn that this year his relief role will be different from last year in that last year he was, quote unquote relief, but it was also like scheduled relief.
Sure.
Like you're going to go 2 or 3 innings 3 days from now. You can work through your routine similar to like what you would do with a starting pitcher, as opposed to, okay, you're in the bullpen. We need an inning today, and we need an inning on Wednesday, and then we need one Thursday. Something like that. Your arm has to figure out how to adjust. You have to figure out how to adjust your routine. So I was pretty optimistic about him going into yesterday's. I was surprised to see him take the mound after Adams and after Lawyerson. Which suggests to me that they, were not as interested in seeing him as, facing some of the better batters as they were the other two. Yeah. So we'll see whether or not where Raya ends up. My guess is he's still somebody that ends up in St. Paul to begin the year. He hasn't had that much success in AAA prior to this, but we'll see where he is. I think they are impressed with sort of the liveliness of his arm.
Liveliness, at least the outing that I saw over the weekend, his control looked really good. Yep. And just his body language looked very positive, something that he has struggled with in his career. He's still a young guy. He's working through, and like you said, it wasn't a very successful year last year. I'm sure it was super frustrating for him at times. So it was good to see him looking healthy. And I think that he is going to be somebody who plays a factor. We talked about kind of dark horses that could make the roster. He was my pick just because there might be an opportunity at the very soft end of that bullpen that they could, if he's looking like what he looked like over the weekend here, he could be somebody that plays a role in the opening day bullpen. Not likely necessarily, but that's why he's a dark horse.
Well, I mean, listen, you could say a lot of different guys for those bullpen roles. There's still a wide open bullpen as far as we can tell. And in fact, we still haven't seen a number of the guys that we kind of are putting in the bullpen almost by default. We haven't seen Taylor Rogers. We haven't seen Liam Hendricks. We haven't seen Anthony Banda. We haven't seen, there's a lot of guys out there that we're kind of, hold it, these guys are supposed to be towards the top end of the bullpen, and we haven't seen them in games yet. So now, some of those guys are veterans. It's not that unusual that we wouldn't see those guys in the first 3, 4, 5 games. But, until we start seeing them more regularly and kind of see what stuff they have, I think you've got to be, a little cautious about what that bullpen, the bullpen race appears to be more wide open than it already was.
Yeah, it's something to watch probably later on down the line once some cuts have been made and there's more opportunity. Guys are working late. The regulars are playing later on in the games. Okay, something to watch for sure. And the last heat check I have for you, who I don't think has a very good chance at all to make the opening day roster, but certainly opened some eyes, was Kendry Rojas, the other returning piece in the Louis Varland trade from the Toronto Blue Jays, who, like Raya, had a very, very tough time in AAA last year, but boy, he looked so electric in his outing on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's, Derek Shelton was like, that's really the first time I've gotten to see him, throw live. And, Kendry Rojas is somebody that they acquired at the trade deadline last year from the Blue Jays in the Larnach trade.
Varland, yep.
I'm sorry, Varland trade, right. Trevor Larnach, yeah. Then he was terrible. He was just terrible at AAA when he came to the Twins. Now, the Blue Jays tend to promote, especially pitchers, very aggressively, maybe the most aggressively in the major leagues. And the Twins have seen that before with Simeon Woods Richardson. They got Simeon Woods Richardson, and he was already at like AA or something like that. And they were like, well, maybe calm him down just a little bit. And eventually, Simeon Woods Richardson adapted to the level of competition that he was dealing with. Rojas was already in AAA as a pretty, how old is he? 22? Something.
He's 23
like
now. So he might have been 22 at the time.
And, and then struggled in AAA in part, he says, because the ball is just a little bit different in AAA. And he's kind of gone back and forth on whether or not that was a problem. He said it was a problem this spring again. So he's, spent some time in the offseason just getting used to the ball from AAA and, figuring out how to grip it and such and be able to control it. He's got an incredibly live arm. Shelton was, encouraged by the outing that he had the other day, 2 innings versus the Braves. And that, by the way, was the Braves A lineup. So, for the grapefruit season opener, most teams will play, about as many of their starters as they can play. And we basically saw the Braves A lineup yesterday, was it Sunday, when the Twins visited there. And that was the game that Taj Bradley faced them and Kendry Rojas faced them. And they both did quite well versus that lineup. So.
Yeah, he mowed down there's Ronald Acuna Jr. that he took down. I want to say is Ozzy Albies. Some of these veteran guys, all-star caliber players that he was looking very lively against. He was consistently in the zone, which is something to watch. If he can do that and keep his poise and keep that sort of success in AAA, he becomes your top pitching prospect by the middle of the season. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I will be interested to see. Mick Abel also pitched yesterday. He also looked very good. Frankly, all of the young starters so far, Zebby Matthews. Yeah, I'd even see Zebby Matthews. Now, we haven't seen that much of Zebby Matthews. Zebby Matthews we saw face the Gophers, right?
Right.
But Taj Bradley looked great. Mick Abel looked great. Kendry Rojas, who's probably not making the team, looked great. And we'll have to see how Zebby Matthews does here pretty soon, because we've got right now one of those three guys are essentially competing with two spots, and that's assuming that Joe Ryan is A, healthy, or B, on the team come opening day. And we'll see if both of those things stay true to form.
Yeah. To be determined. Somebody asked here, did John just confirm a Trevor Larnach trade? No, I don't think you were breaking news there.
I don't know why I do this all the time on the Gleeman and the Geek podcast, but for some reason, Varland and Larnach sound too similar in my head. And so I say one versus the other. They're not even close to each other. Yeah. One's a left-handed hitting outfielder. The other's a right-handed hitting reliever now, and a right-handed pitching reliever. And I mix those two up all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. German last name, something like that.
Something like that. Well, they both got the consonant vowel, consonant vowel, consonant. Like so.
Something like that. Okay, well, that's all we have for Heat Check right now. Some races to watch for sure. We only have a couple overreactions that would like a scouting report from you. We have two of them today. The first one comes from Bob Azar on Blue Sky here. He says that Walker Jenkins is going to finish the year top 5 in home runs on the 2026 Twins. So he's going to have top 5.
Okay, well, let's see. Buxton, Wallner.
I'd probably put Josh Bell in that conversation.
Josh Bell, Larnach. Who's my fifth?
Royce, maybe?
Clemens, Royce Lewis. No. Yeah. So I'm going to say no. I think that's an overreaction. I'll put that as a 70 overreaction.
Yeah.
I will be interested to see how soon we see Jenkins come in. There certainly injuries can provide opportunities, but I'm not even sure he'd necessarily be the first one called up if there was an injury in the outfield. They are, he was okay in AAA last year. He didn't flounder in AAA last year, but he also didn't tear it up. And I will say that as a 70 overreaction, pretty big overreaction. We'll see when we get to see Walker Jenkins. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Walker Jenkins before the trade deadline.
Beyond just the opportunity that he would need to kind of grasp, power hasn't necessarily been his calling card, even in the success that he's had in the minor leagues. He's been a great hitter. It's more been his pure hit tool, some of his defense and, base stealing abilities. But power, they're still waiting. He's a big guy. I think you can project that he's going to, get some power as time goes on here. But it hasn't been proven from him by any means at this point yet. So
I agree with you.
So 70, I think that's probably a pretty fair grade for that. And let's see, the last overreaction scouting grade is from my co-host on the Twins Off Daily podcast, Mr. Cody Schoenman. He says that he thinks Kalen Culpepper is already a better overall player than Brooks Lee. What would you give that for an overreaction scouting report?
I'll give it a 60. Maybe even 65. Yeah. Okay. I think it's easy to project on somebody who, tore up Double-A, but didn't have especially a lot of success at Triple-A last year. I think if you'd have said the same thing if you compared Brooks Lee 2 years ago to Kalen Culpepper next year, I'm not sure that you'd have had the same opinion. Brooks Lee looked awfully good and was sort of the darling of spring training camp maybe 3 years ago.
Right.
And, I'm excited about what Kalen Culpepper can bring. We did not know enough about Brooks Lee's limitations at shortstop when he was promoted 3 years ago, right? We kind of thought, hey, this is a guy who can, there was some question about whether there were serious questions about whether or not he could handle short long term. And Carlos Correa was certainly, it didn't really matter because we had Carlos Correa, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is that the majors with the speed that the ball gets through the infield, and once you start, seeing them side by side with other players and what they can do, their, deficiencies become a little more obvious. And I'll say this as well. I think, Brooks Lee still is in a situation where, people seem to be awfully down on Brooks Lee. I'm a little surprised that that's the case. We haven't seen him that much starting games right now. I think we'll see him again tomorrow in the starting lineup. So, I can't say definitively, oh, this guy is different in terms of, how he made some modifications during the season. But I would expect that Cody, I think you better expect Kalen Culpepper to run into the same same kinds of struggles that Brooks Lee and Matt Wallner and Edward Julian and Jose Miranda and Royce Lewis and all these other guys that get exposed to the majors and suddenly get exposed to Major League Baseball's pitching, and they have to figure out some way to get past that. So.
Yeah. I think there's a non-zero chance that we've seen, Brooks Lee maybe at his lowest point in his career right now, and we're seeing Kalen Culpepper at the highest point. I hope not. I hope that Culpepper continues to develop, but we've seen it with top prospects before that they look like can't miss guys. They're coming out of college. They are promoted pretty aggressively, and they struggle. Like you said, this game's all about adjustments and who can adjust to who and continue to make those adjustments. So,
and even guys that don't wash out, like Trevor Larnach. Trevor Larnach has sort of held his own.
Yeah.
But is he an asset? Is he somebody you're going to offer arbitration to in their third year of arbitration? Probably not. That it's easy to sort of peak out if you don't continue to develop year after year after year in the majors. It is a much longer journey from AA to, major league regular than I think we are willing to recognize.
Okay. We have one last one in the chat here. Rate my overreaction. The Twins will have a league average bullpen this season. That's from Behold a Man 8.
60. 50 would be an even chance, right? And I would say 60. Okay. I think that is an overreaction. I don't know what we've got in this bullpen. Right. I mean, it's funny because I probably would have said I'm maybe a 55, even as late as January before they had gone and acquired a bunch of veterans and so on. But the more I watch this, the more I'm like, I don't know I don't know what to expect from the veterans. I don't know which of I probably was more optimistic about some of the young starters, et cetera, developing into reliable bullpen arms than I am right now, because I just don't think we have the depth that we thought we had in that area. And so and also it does feel maybe right now I'm sort of at the point where they're still stretching a lot of guys out, so maybe a bunch of these guys that we're kind of seeing doing starts end up in the bullpen. We're seeing Andrew Morris do a start today. I wouldn't be shocked if Andrew Morris ends up in the bullpen at some point.
Okay.
But he's not today. He's starting at home in a home game. So, for now, Andrew Morris is in the St. Paul rotation. Connor Prielipp is in the St. Paul rotation. Kendry Rojas is in the St. Paul rotation right now. So, that is those guys are not right now in the bullpen. And so we're waiting to see some of the veteran relievers that we, may have on the team take them out. So I'm a little less optimistic probably about the bullpen than I was even 2 weeks ago.
I will say weird things happen in Major League bullpens all the time, every year. I think that it's easy to look at the deficiencies in the bullpen just based on what you've seen from just watching Twins baseball. And if you watch league-wide baseball, yes, I would say that the Twins probably have a, bottom half bullpen for sure, but weird things happen all the time. I think they're probably 50th percentile outcome, right around average, I think is just below league average. And if they have a couple good breaks, that can be a huge difference, and that can propel them up. I'm not going to say that
similarly, if they have a couple of bad breaks, they could be, much worse than that. So I agree with you. That's why I give it an overreaction of a 60. It's not a 70. Like a 70 is a clear overreaction. 80 is you're crazy. 50 is I don't think I'm going to. It's not crazy. It's
okay. Fair enough. All right. We just have a couple of questions to end the show here that were submitted to us on social media. Let's see. Mustache Steve on Twitter asks, Emma is a horrible nickname. Can we start calling him Manrod? I don't know if that one's much better, but
I will
Emma,
let Mustache Steve be the first one to call Emma Manrod to his
yeah,
face.
yeah. Mustache Steve, that's on you, brother. That's on you. All right.
Go ahead.
Let's see. Gus the Bus asks, which switch hitter are you most comfortable giving every day at bats to? So that includes guys like Brooks Lee, Josh Bell, Victor Caratini. They're all switch hitters. I think that it's interesting because all of them are going to get they're going to get plenty of play. All three of those guys are. Josh Bell probably has the highest upside just based on how good he is from the left side, but he's got some question marks from the right side. Victor Caratini is probably the most balanced if you look at some of his splits there. And Brooks Lee, like you said, still just a question mark. So who gives you the most faith as a switch hitter?
Well, I guess I'd go with Josh Bell. I mean,
Okay.
that he's got. If it's not Josh Bell, then I don't know why Josh Bell is on the team, right? I mean, he's not. It's not because of his defensive glove at first base,
No.
right? Like they. I think you're going to see Josh Bell in the middle of this order on a regular basis, which by itself is maybe a little bit damning of the rest of the order. But the point is, no, Josh Bell has to be the guy that we've got the most faith in, and he's got to have, if this team is going to produce, he's going to probably be a pretty significant portion of why they overachieve, and are better than the 24th or 25th best offense in Major League Baseball.
No doubt. No doubt. Okay, last question here. Tiny Tim asks, would it make sense for Joe Ryan to still participate in the World Baseball Classic as maybe like a 1 or 2 inning reliever if he's still ramping up? He's going to be slowed down a little bit with the sore back. We're still waiting for some clarity on what that looks like. Is it not worth it at that point for him to join Team USA, or could you see him being, just a couple innings as he ramps up?
We will have to see where they're at. We asked Shelton about his participation on Sunday. I mentioned that they said, well, we're going to reevaluate in 3-4 days. He did also say, listen, we're aligned on this, meaning the Twins and Ryan were sort of aligned on, that. I presume what he meant by that is that the WBC, as important it is not necessarily as important as making sure that he is going to be healthy and ready to go for opening day.
Yeah.
That he's got responsibilities beyond that. Now the fact that they're aligned 3 or 4 days beforehand, does that mean that they're aligned, Thursday or Friday when they have to make this decision, or Wednesday or Thursday when they have to make this decision? I'm not as sure. I mean, I think Ryan was probably scheduled to go 45 pitches. Okay. I think he was already at that. Most of the guys we have seen starting at this point are already at 45 pitches, right? So I don't think the pitch count is necessarily the biggest concern for him. And maybe it might be that they say, okay, well, and in fact, actually, you could argue from the Twins standpoint that it's riskier for him to come in as a reliever. We don't know when you're actually going to be relieving than it is as a starter who can prep and prepare and make sure that the back is loose and so on. And that might be a bigger concern than him in a starting pitching role. So, we'll see what happens. As of Sunday, I've thought to myself, no, there's no chance he's actually going to be performing in the WBC, or at least not in the preliminary round. We might see him. We might do something. The USA is expected to make, the playoff rounds of the WBC, and maybe at that point he would be available, either as a relief role or maybe a scheduled relief role,
right,
or a starter or piggybacking starter or something like that. But I can also see, Joe Ryan probably really wants to do this.
Sure.
The Twins want to defer and want to support him on that. So we'll see what happens within the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we'll know by Friday, one way or the other, what's going on.
Okay. So, just looking at this from a Team USA standpoint too, they could just have him as a reserve. We've seen other pitchers commit to say, hey, if we get to the second round, then I'll be on the roster.
Yeah. The Twins have Liam Hendricks doing exactly that.
Yes. So, with Team USA, they got Paul Skeens, they have Tarek Skubal, and they have Logan Webb. All three of those guys could take the pool play around, and then maybe they move to the playoff bracket, and Joe Ryan starts one of those games. That gives him an extra week to kind of ramp up. So we'll see. Like I said, it's a huge honor. Hopefully he can get there, and it'd be fun to see him on the world stage in the World Baseball Classic with Byron Buxton. So
I agree.
Be fun. Wild. That might be the first time we mentioned Byron Buxton, and we're about 50 minutes into this podcast. So
Yeah, I know.
fantastic.
He did play in back-to-back games
Okay.
earlier today, and I presume that was because he wants to get ready for the World Baseball Classic, and he's starting today in center field for the Twins. He started in center field versus the Red Sox back on Saturday, and then he was a DH on Sunday. Traveled, which you don't always see star players do. Now it was a short travel. The Braves one is probably the second closest complex we have here. So, and he played DH because they didn't want to necessarily run him around in center field 2 days in a row this early in spring training camp. But I suspect that is because he wants to get locked in before the WBC, and in fact said that he started preparing for the season a month before he usually does because he wanted to be prepared for the WBC. So, I expect we're gonna. We see him in center field today. They have another home game tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him play in a back-to-back game again tomorrow, maybe as a DH again. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, that'll be exciting. It'll be fun to see Buck out there for sure. Okay, last question that somebody had last week that I just want you to touch on quick. Anything fun around Hammond Stadium that's new this year? You've been there for a couple weeks now. Any fun new foods or drinks or even anything close to the stadium? There's a few folks who have been saying, "Hey, I'm coming down to spring training. What can John recommend?"
Well, I mean, first of all, I'll just recommend the Twins Daily Ultimate Spring Training Guide because we've got, I don't know, 3,000 words of suggestions on what to do or what not to do there. I actually have a note today to make a couple of updates to it of new things that we have discovered to do in Fort Myers, now not necessarily around the stadium. Within the stadium itself, there's not a lot of changes. We haven't seen hardly any changes in terms of the food or the drink this year compared to last year. I will say that, my hack is, when the Twins have a road game, if you don't want to go to the road game, come to the stadium anyway in the mornings between probably 9:30 and noon. You are likely to see the starters who did not go on road games, because often the regular everyday starters for the Twins or the veterans will not make road games, or at least there will be only a couple of them that go on the road. Most of them play at home. If you want to get up and close to them and really see them, taking spring training cuts as if they were on a high school field and you were at the fence, looking at them doing and as well as, walking back to the locker room, maybe they stop and talk and sign some autographs and stuff. The time to do that is road games. Throughout spring training, that's a good way to be able to see them. They don't always stop. It's not a required thing. You're taking your chances, but it's not uncommon. I've heard from person after person after person who I've given that advice to, that they really appreciated that advice, that they end up getting to say a word or two to Brooks Lee or to Royce Lewis or Joe Ryan. Spring training is as accessible as you are ever going to get following a Major League Baseball team. And I think the Twins are probably lean into that even more so than some of the other teams.
Well, fantastic. That's good to know. I think a lot of folks will love that. Like I said, hop onto Twins Daily. We have a great guide for everybody who is making the trek down to Fort Myers. I think it's time to land this plane, John. Everybody, please listen to John on the Gleeman and the Geek podcast. It's a must listen for all Twins fans.
I should mention, if you are on the Patreon for Gleeman and the Geek, we've got a very special guest that we are interviewing later today.
Okay.
And I'm not willing to reveal it because if something happens, we don't get this person. I'm excited. But otherwise, by tomorrow morning, that could be dropping. So stay tuned.
Oof.
And we are running a special for 4 more days. Spring 2026 gets you just $1 a week for the first month. So
highly recommend. That's great. John, you're also Twins Daily's putting together a little event later this week, I want to say, right?
I should mention, that's the other thing I should probably mention to all the people who are in Fort Myers are coming down to spring training. We're having Beers with the Beat Writers Friday at Palm City Brewing. And we're releasing the new Twins Daily, D-A-L-E-Y, a pale ale that we had last year. It was fantastic. And this year it'll be available in cans. You can bring some home to Minnesota with you.
We got a great beat that follow the Minnesota Twins, and they can put them back too. So that should be a pretty fun event. Like like I said, everybody, please listen to Gleaming in the Geek. It's must listen. If you want to have some fun and talk some ball too, we talk on the Twins Off Daily podcast. We have a new episode that came out today. But until then, John and I will be back for another, I think, one last episode while you're down there next week. I think it's going to be next Tuesday.
I think it's next Tuesday. We'll be doing something. We'll maybe try to fit in one more too. We'll see. These are a lot of fun. So
sounds good. Right on. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. Stay sweet.